So firstly, thank you all for attending today. My name is Mo. We'll do some introductions in a second, but today's webinar is going to be focused on AI-ready feeds. Before I jump in, I'm just going to say one thing. It's 2025. It's rare we go through a day without hearing about AI, right? So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to what we've got to talk about today and getting ready for what we're calling the new era of shopping and how we can help brands and retailers get the most out of it and get ready for it. So, title of today's webinar will be AI ready feeds, boost visibility with Google Cloud, Gemini, and Perplexity. Quite a broad title, but we're going to break it down into digestible pieces and go into a little bit more detail. So, let's get forward and look at today's agenda and what we're going to cover. 5 points, I've broken it down. Number one, introduction to myself, who am I, and why I'm speaking today, and then an introduction into commerce. Some of you may or may not have heard of commerce. We've just gone through a rebrand. Formerly, it was BigCommerce, Feedonomics, and MakeSwift. Now we're all under the commerce banner. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to get kind of straight into it and look at how the discovery journey is changing. Now, this is something for me that's really, really interesting because the way people are finding products is very, very different to what it was, I would say, even 18 months to 2 years ago, and definitely completely different to what it was 5 years ago. So we'll spend a little bit of time going into exactly how that's changing. And then AI ready feeds. What does that mean? Right? We'll go into a little bit more detail there and give you some guidelines for really readiness and getting feeds ready for AI platforms. And then penultimate point, we're going to look at exactly how brands and retailers can boost visibility both with and on AI platforms. And then we're going to close it out with some remarks and a Q&A. Just with regards to the Q&A, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat throughout the course of the webinar, and my colleagues will moderate that and will aim to get them all answered throughout and at the end. Also, if there's any that we don't get into, then feel free to follow up with me after as well. Cool. So let's jump in and do some introductions. Let's start with me, because I think it's kind of important to know who it is you're listening to today and a little bit on my background. So my name is Mo. I'm a key account director here at Commerce. I've been in e-commerce about 12 years now, which always makes me feel super old when I say it out loud. One thing just to call out there, though, is that I mentioned in the previous slide when we were talking about the agenda about how the customer journey is changing. I mentioned that it's super different to what it was 18 months and 2 years ago, but it's very, very different to when I first started in this space 12 years ago, right? I think the evolution of that has been very, very interesting. I've seen kind of the boom in PPC, the boom in marketplaces, etc. There's nothing I've quite seen that really rivals what we're seeing now with AI. So I'll touch on that in a little bit more detail as well as we get into it. My role day to day is I work with some of the largest, excuse me, I work with some of the largest brands globally, helping them with the adoption of our kind of services and how we can help them to expand and optimize their performance online. And finally, if you're not connected with me, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. One more call out. As you've probably heard, I have got a horrible cold. So if I do start coughing, I apologize in advance. I'll try to keep it to a minimum. So let's talk about commerce, right? And who we are. So as I mentioned previously, commerce is a culmination of 3 companies coming under one banner. Previously, we had BigCommerce, we had Feedonomics, and we have MakeSwift. All those 3 companies are now under the commerce umbrella. So what does that mean? It means we're a huge company who now service various different elements of the entire e-commerce ecosystem. BigCommerce was built giving organizations the ability and the freedom to innovate without any kind of constraint on how they want to build their web presence, right? Feedonomics, we power feed management, helping organizations to syndicate, optimize, standardize their product data across various different advertising channels, marketplaces, etc., etc. Bringing that all together, we now service thousands of brands and retailers globally, 1,300 employees, and we have a number of agency partners as well. And we work with some of the world's largest brands. Here's a little bit more of kind of like a passed out version of that, right? So 3 key companies, like I said, and the key thing with commerce sitting above that is they're all enriched through AI. So we're at a bit of a pivotal moment where we're leveraging AI across all the companies to really help the customer in their new shopping journey. So here's a little bit more about the statistics behind that. Like I mentioned, we work with thousands of brands and retailers globally. And also one thing to call out from this slide is the number of countries where we operate and where our clients are based. That currently stands at above 150. So kind of touched on commerce, what it is we do. We touched on the agenda for what we're going to cover today. So let's get stuck into that and really look at the starting point. The starting point I've chosen for today is really discovery and the discovery journey and how that's changing. I'm going to start with some really, really interesting statistics. 58% of consumers now begin product discovery on AI tools. Now, I'm going to make this a little bit interactive. You'll see a React function just to the right of chat. If you have used an AI platform like ChatGPT or Perplexity or anything like that in the last 6 weeks to search for a product, please give me a thumbs up. That's quite a few of you. I would say it's 58% of you, right? So as you can see, based on the reactions in the chat, based on the numbers we've got on screen, it's a significant growing area that people are using to find new products. I use it myself personally. For those who are connected with me on LinkedIn, I've shared the story a couple of times where I've been searching for a blazer. I put in my measurements, I put in what the size of the type of fit, the type of size I want into ChatGPT, and I say, hey, help me to find the blazers that are most appropriate to me. I want to use it like this, etc., etc. And it gives me recommendations. Now, ChatGPT is currently processing 1 billion queries per day, and that's rising at a rapid rate. 15% of those queries have shopping intent. And the key point that we really want to get across today is that the data doesn't support the demand. So out of all of these queries, 15% of a billion, I won't do the maths, but it's a lot. The data supporting those queries is not sufficient for a customer to be able to find what they're looking for. Let me take it a step back to my example with the blazers, right? Let's say I'm looking for a very, very specific informal blazer that I want to wear casually to the office on a day-to-day basis. I like a relaxed fit. I like it to be navy, for example, and I like it to be of a wool fabric, right? If I search for those key terms like, hey, I'm looking for a relaxed blazer in wool, in navy, which are the best options for me in a 100 to 200 pound price range? If that specific brand doesn't have the product data that they're sending to that specific AI platform, they're not going to come up when I'm searching for that blazer. So I'm left with not having that as an option, right? So that's just something I want you guys to think about as we go through the rest of today's webinar. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'll be keeping half an eye on it and we'll try to get them answered at the end. So let's look at kind of the future of agentic commerce and where that's going. And we'll kind of go through a historical context. I mentioned it at the beginning in that it's been 12 years for me in this space and changed quite a lot since then, right? So it's a journey that we're on that we've kind of taken to 3 points. Point number 1, shopper to merchant, traditional e-commerce. I am a shopper searching for a blazer. I go to blazershop.com which I don't know if it's a real website, but I go to that specific website and I buy that blazer. Now I'm using an agent to recommend a blazer to me that I can then go and buy. In the future, I could potentially have an agent who knows what I want to shop for, searching on my behalf, going to another agent, right? So where are we right now? Right now, we're in the middle. We are agent to merchant because, like I said, we as shoppers are using agents to guide us to a merchant. Where will we be in the future? Further along that journey, right? Potentially agent to agent. In that agent to agent world, how can we ensure that we are ready for that state, essentially, right? Agent to merchant, like we said, it's important to have the product data that we need to make sure that as agents are searching for specific queries that users and customers are inputting, the products are coming up. In an agent to agent world, same thing, but exemplified, because the agents won't be able to distinguish in as much detail as a human. So they'll be just matching query for query. Going back to the blazer example, if it's not navy, it will not show up. As a user, as a shopper, going from shopper to merchant or agent to merchant, if the navy doesn't show up, I might like the black one and be tempted by that. So for agent to agent, it's even more specific that the product data and the feeds going to the AI platforms are ready to pick up on those search queries. So we've spoken about the journey, we've spoken about how that's really changing, we've spoken about the future state and where we're getting to. But AI ready feeds, what does that mean specifically, right? And what are the readiness guidelines we need to make sure we're prepared for that and prepared for the, let's say, agent to agent world that we're inevitably heading towards? So I split it into three key areas, right? I'm going to give you a second to digest this while I grab some water. The key areas we've kind of split this into is number one, is your data visible and complete across all the channels where you're currently selling today, right? Number two, are your products discoverable and are they purchasable from AI platforms, right? Let's say, for example, I'm sending something to my products are visible through Perplexity, can I actually buy them there, right? And are you prepared as a brand or a retailer to offer agentic experiences on your own storefront? So if I go to I'm searching for the product, go through an AI platform, the AI platform takes me to an own storefront. Can I have an agentic experience where, let's say, an agent can then purchase that product for me, right? That's very much up to the brand or the retailer. So this is kind of the future of agentic commerce and how we're looking at it. So let's look at another model we have, which is really the 5 levels of data maturity. Now, this is super important because this really looks at how you can get your product data ready for AI platforms in a very, very structured way. Now, level 1, basic, absolute basic things. Title, name of a product, description. If we skip through and we look at things like level 4, that's where it becomes very, very pertinent. And that's where you start becoming ready for AI platforms. Fit guides, trend guides. Going back to the blazer example, I like an unstructured fit. If the product data isn't at level 4 and it's only at level 1, which doesn't include anything about fit guides or trend guides or anything like that, it's not going to show up, right? Spec sheets, catalog PDFs. Again, going back to the trends, everything that might encourage someone to make that purchase has to be there in level 4, which is essentially the readiness you need to be at for an agentic platform. And then level 5, which encompasses things such as user generated content, right? Comparison articles, reviews as well, which are key because if I can see in a summary where I've searched for a specific product, that others who have bought that product have reviewed it and said, hey, this actually fits really great, or it's very durable, or it's very warm. That's going to encourage me to go and make that purchase. So let's move on. So what we're essentially saying, and to summarize that last slide, and the main kind of takeaway I want from you guys is data is really the growth layer, right? This is how we grow. This is how we move through the chain. Now, here is a kind of, let's call it a infinity diagram or a figure of eight, however you see fit, which looks at how product data is essential in driving all of the channels on the right. And AI search being a key one of them, but also things like search and PPC. One thing I want to call out specifically is if we were to go on to OpenAI, ChatGPT now, and if we look at the schema for uploading product data into ChatGPT, it's the same as Google, right? One thing OpenAI can do slightly differently is it can ingest more product data than the Google schema can currently. Why that's important is that I'm having conversations about this on a day-to-day basis about people wanting to do more, wanting to have their product data available on OpenAI, ChatGPT, various different advertising platforms. But if we strip it back and look at the product data they're sending to Google Shopping right now, which in most cases is still their biggest driver, it's not even fully optimized for that channel, right? So one thing that I suggest and one thing that we really, really kind of huge advocates for is getting your data right for every channel in the initial basis before then taking it to the next level with readiness for AI platforms, right? So main takeaway, get it right for Google first, get it right for Amazon, get it right for your other marketplaces and wherever you send data to. Use that as the building block for the AI platforms. So coming up to kind of like the penultimate session and kind of section on this, I know we've been going quite quick. I want to leave some time at the end and hopefully give you guys some time back as well. But how can brands actually boost visibility both with and on AI platforms? As we just said, the starting point is search, right? That's where it all begins. If everything is set up correctly in your current search platforms, Google, Meta, etc., it's a great starting point to then kick on from there. Search, like I said, that's the initial basis. And then from there, moving on to the rest. I'm bringing this slide back up because I want to touch on a really, really key point and highlight that in level 5. So in level 5, we call out specifically user-generated content, right? This is an area where leveraging user-generated content for search hasn't really been something that a lot of brands have cracked in entirety, so to speak. AI platforms offer brands the ability to be able to do that at a high level, right? So that's something I think is a really, really key area to highlight because it's essentially marrying up user-generated content, which is a key pillar, which a lot of brands are trying to do and maximize, as well as making sure they're visible through how people shop on AI platforms, etc. So I think leveraging on one hand the user-generated content, putting it through the feed, pushing that to AI platforms, I think that's an area where we're going to see a high level of growth in the future. So what does this kind of mean, right, for merchants? Again, 3 key points on this one. Product discovery, like we've said, is very much AI driven, right? Checkout is essentially agentic, right? AI will increasingly initiate and complete purchases on behalf of shoppers. It's already happening. It will happen more so in the future. Data and the systems behind the data are absolutely critical. So we've spoken a lot about the importance of the product data that's going through all the systems, the importance and the let's say, the robustness of the product data that's being sent onto the AI platforms, but what about the actual systems that are sending them there? Are they robust enough? Are they up to date enough? Can they take the number of products you have? What's their kind of uptime like? All those things are really, really key considerations, because if you've got things like stock and availability coming through those systems, they'll need to be updated in quite frequent times for those AI platforms, because obviously there's a lot of searches happening there. So I think that that's a really, really important one to consider. So how are we as a company, as commerce, helping with that? So we've got a number of different elements within our platform that help enable AI and enable everything we've spoken about so far. One of them is Feed AI, right? That's essentially transforming product data management with generative AI, automating things like categorization, compliance, and content, so you can scale everything you have a lot faster and with less effort. An example specifically, let's say you're a brand or a retailer in fashion and you have, I don't know, 1 million SKUs, right? Which is very kind of common, a lot more common than people think, especially when you factor in different sizes, different colors, etc., etc. How can you essentially scale them and categorize them in the correct way, essentially with minimal effort from your side and allowing us to make sure that things come up where they should? We use things like Feed AI to ensure that that's not a factor, right? We ensure that things are categorized correctly, where they should be, and users are able to find things exactly where they need to be found. Another key area where we're helping is data enrichment, right? So I'm going to let the video play itself and I'm going to kind of talk over it. But essentially, this looks at the schema mapping exactly like I've just mentioned. So what we're doing here is automatically mapping data from multiple sources. Previously, we spoke about those systems you have in place. That might be a website backend, it might be an ERP, might be a PIM system. All that product data coming in, how is that mapped to where it should be, to then ensure it goes to the schema on the AI platform in the correct way and is searchable by your customers. And then finally, the agentic search element. So AI tools now act as essentially intelligent shopping agents, making product data really the new storefront, right? So incomplete or inconsistent means you're invisible in results. So when it comes to things like agentic search and agentic checkouts, how can you guys come up and how can an agent essentially place that? We're helping to drive a lot of that in our thought process and helping to make brands and retailers at the kind of forefront of that shopping experience. And finally, let's kind of wrap it up with what's really the benefit of that, right? So the benefit of how we're helping brands and how we're partnering with them is ultimately merchants, we're helping them to boost visibility. One, in the first instance of, let's say, stage one, which is the search element. So getting things right in stage one, which is, let's say, Google search, Meta, etc., and then using that as a basis to then build on from there. Key takeaways from the previous section, and I'm going to spend a little bit longer on this side because I think this is the one where I really want you guys to kind of take away the key points here, right? So, number one, it's really, really important to view an AI platform as the new storefront. Personally, we don't think the new storefront is your website or what your brand sees on Google, what your customers see on Google, or what they see on Amazon or any other marketplace. We think that new storefront and that first time a customer might come across your brand is ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever else it might be. So that's where you're essentially meeting them. Another point, we've said it quite a few times, ensure your feeds are in a good starting point, right? And this third point is something that I've said quite a lot over the last probably about 2 years. It's become a bit of a slogan of mine. If you followed some of the things I've been putting out on LinkedIn, which is meet your customers how they want to be met. Let's take it right back to where we started with the shopping journey and how that's changed. 58% of people are now shopping through AI platforms. So that's essentially a large proportion of people asking to be met on an AI platform. Now, the strategy behind that is not hoping you show up where your customer searches for specific terms, right? The strategy is showing up accurately, persuasively, and at the exact moment a shopper is asking for what you're selling. I've just realized the tick and the cross are the wrong way around there. So I will edit that before we put these slides out. But what we're trying to say, and to summarize it, is your customer wants to be met by you with your product on an AI platform. To ensure you're doing that, you need to have the best product data. That kind of summarizes all the slides we've got. I've seen quite a few questions coming into the chat. So we're probably going to spend about the next 15 minutes answering questions, and then we'll have 15 minutes that we could take back at the end. So let's start and get kicked off with that. So I'm just going to open the Q&A and jump into that. So anonymous attendee, question number one. We're seeing a huge transformation in how consumers search and shop because of AI. How should brands rethink their approach in this new environment? So I think we kind of covered a lot of that already, right? In terms of how they search and shop because of AI. I think one other thing I would add is that AI is essentially giving people so much more info than they've ever had before. As a result, it's important to be able to provide them with that information. So, excuse me, what I would say is that if, again, going back to the fashion example, if someone is searching for, let's say, a specific type of jacket, are you ensuring that you have all the data that's pertinent to that jacket? An example, I might be searching for a leather jacket with tassels on it. I can assure you I'm definitely not searching for that. But if I was, I would want to know what kind of tassels are on it. What does it look like? Is it durable? Does it have a lining? What's the fit like? My specific search term is very, very, very specific. So I need very, very specific data to ensure that I can find that and ensure that I would actually buy that, right? So to answer the question is, how should brands rethink their approach? Their approach should be focused on detail, focus on specificities, and focus on telling the brand's story in the best possible way. So I hope that answers that question. How can optimizing product data give my brand a real advantage in the new AI first search world? Links to the previous point, and I think what I'll take for the previous answer is the storytelling element, right? Each brand, each retailer, even each product, if we want to strip it down, has a very, very specific story attached to it, right? There's not a single brand out there that doesn't have a brand identity and a brand story. What I would say with regards to that is that the advantage is going to be who tells that story better and who's able to leverage their product data to articulate that story. So I hope that that answers the question. Even though this webinar has been about AI and we've talked about 58% of queries start on AI platforms, etc., Google is still the number one channel for people to essentially sell products right now, right? So I would say, yes, definitely worth spending on Google Shopping and Google Ads. If you were to ask me that question in 2 years' time, maybe the answer will be slightly different, right? But right now, that's still the number one. And I still think there's no reason for any brand to pull away from that. I think they just need to diversify in the right way. Hope that answers the question. Thank you. Sorry, I accidentally hit mute on my mic. Um, Thank you for letting me know. So I'll just repeat the last 30 seconds. So with regards to the question, it was about Google and BCG's digital maturity models, where brands are falling short, what they can do in the short term to stay ahead. So what I would say is in the short term, links back to the 5 levels of digital maturity that we presented. Short term, I would say make the changes that are going to make the biggest impact. Big statement. Let me break it down a little bit. Changes that are going to make the biggest impact are things such as making sure the product titles are fully optimized, making sure you have things like very basic things, size, color, material, fit, um, anything brand specific in your product title, making sure that descriptions are clear, descriptions are reflective of the product, making sure that you have things like stock availability, all those really, really critical things. Sometimes we see that brands are missing that a lot. So what we would say is that it's essential for them to make those changes in the short term to ensure that they are staying ahead. And then long term, you can look at it in more detail. You can start to get more granular with things, etc. Just mark that as answered. Next question from Chris Sesford. What would you say is the most accurate way to track AI ranks and stroke product visibility, as Arifs and SEMrush never seem to get this accurate? This is a great question. And to be honest with you, Chris, it's not one that I have an answer for, because I think that a lot of the tracking and a lot of the ranks is still a bit of a relative unknown, right? I've seen a lot of different organizations try to do it. Like you've just mentioned, some never seem to get this level of accuracy. I think, to be fair to them, it's hard to get that level of accuracy. I don't think it's something that's been figured out yet, my opinion, right? I think we're getting there. I think there will be new developments there, just as developments are changing in shopping, just as developments are changing in everything else. When it comes to tracking developments, there will change too. So my answer to that, and it's not one where I want to come across sitting on the fence, is just one that I don't know the best kind of way forward there. And I think it's something that will have to come in time, right? It will be refined. So hope that answers your question. And then one more from Shazad. Is it important to have LLM.text to rank in AI searches and AI checkouts? Um, I would say yes to begin with, but it's important, but not essential, right? That's something that and we could probably take this one offline and we can share more detail into how we are formatting for AI platform schemas, right? Um, I think the kind of, let's say, rankings behind the algorithm and behind the search are still relatively unknown. I liken it a little bit to the Amazon buy box mystery, in that no one really knew what factored into the buy box and how to win it, right? And I think a lot of that is where we are on some AI platforms now. Having said that, and to slightly contradict myself, what we're seeing is that there's no limit on the amount of kind of data you can send. So I would definitely suggest to include it and to send more data than you would usually send to a typical Google schema. But that's definitely something we could probably take offline and discuss in more detail. Cool. Another question. We're seeing a huge transformation of shop because of AI. Okay, I've answered that one. Answered that one. Answered that one. Which LLMs can commerce share feeds with today? So currently we can share feeds with Perplexity. That's in a closed beta. We have others coming in kind of very close proximity. Currently it's just at Perplexity right now, but watch this space. That is likely to change very soon. I think that's it for the questions. So thank you very much for your participation. I really, really appreciate it. It's been good to share this with you. Excuse me for my consistent coughing throughout. I managed to soldier through it, and we've also managed to give you guys some time back as well. So really appreciate it. The slides will be available upon request, and we hope to see you guys on the next one. Thank you.